You too.
Sounds great. Thank you.
You're going live now.
Excellent. Good to pop up. There we go. We're live. All right. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us for this first LEGO League robot game webinar. This is not going to be super mission specific. I don't want to get into talking about strategy. I don't want to talk about your plan for your individual team, but I do want to go over sort of what you can expect and where you can find the resources for this. I'll go over the general rules. I'll give you a very brief overview of the table and the missions, but I want to save all the strategizing to the kids, to the students, and make sure that they get the most out of this that they can. So first, I just want to direct you to some links that you have available to you online on the First Inspires website. There's a bunch of resources here to help you as coaches get started and to help the team figure out exactly what to do, what's allowed, figure out specifics of missions, mission details, updates. I want to show you all of those resources before I get started. So first, from the firstinspires.org website, when you go to programs and you go to First LEGO League, there's a few different First LEGO Leagues. There's First LEGO Leagues Explore, First LEGO Leagues Discover. I think I have that out of order. And then First LEGO League Challenge, which is what we'll be talking about today. So this is the First LEGO League Challenge. So from here, I'm just going to go down. Our challenge is called Cargo Connect. So we go into the game and season info. This is where you'll find all the resources that you need as a team to make sure that you are ready to go. So the challenge season materials link on the left-hand side will bring you to this page. This has every single resource that First Inspires has available. There's a ton. The first one you'll see is a challenge overview, which is a very quick, brief guide to what Cargo Connect season is about. Then the next guide, which is probably in terms of the robot game, the most important one, is the challenge updates. So for the challenge updates, this was updated October 21st was the last update they posted. Updates get posted on Wednesday, so make sure that when your team meets, you just go to this site, see what the updated date is, and make sure that you are up to date on the most recent changes to the rules. There are some clarifications and some minor changes. I'll go through and show you what that looks like in just a second. On here, the first thing that you should do as a coach and as a team is watch the robot game missions video. I have watched it. I know all the missions pretty well, but I would not do this video justice. This is done by First Headquarters. They do a great job showing you all the missions, how many points can be scored for each individual mission. So if you have questions about how many points can I get for doing a mission, or what is the intended way a mission can be completed, what does that look like? This robot game missions video, which is only about 10 to 15 minutes long, shows you every single detail for every single mission that is in the rulebook. So that is the first thing that you as a team should look at to make sure you're up to date or you're ready to go to start with the robot game. And then the next robot game item is a score calculator. There's also now a First Inspires score calculator, which is new. I've never seen this before, but there's no more third party finding FLL score on the internet because they might score incorrectly. This one is made by First and will score correctly, so you can use that for practice. It's a handy tool to have this year. There's all sorts of coding resources and building resources. But then we get down to the section called Rules, Judging, and Rubrics. Here you'll find a bunch of the things that you'll use as a coach for this season. And as the head referee, I'll focus on the robot game rulebook. That robot game rulebook will show you in detail the text requirements for every mission. It'll show pictures. It will show procedures you have to do to complete certain missions. It'll also give you general rules for what is allowed, what is not allowed, and how to handle the 2.5 minute robot match. So just to get everyone sort of on the same page, when you do First LEGO League Challenge, this table, right, this is your competition table. And in this competition table, you'll come to a qualifier, right? You'll attend one of the many qualifiers across the state of Maryland, and you'll bring your robot and you'll bring a computer to code, but you don't need to bring any of this table. This table is going to be brought to the site by us It'll be set up. It'll be perfectly to spec. And if you notice anything wrong or any inconsistencies, let us know. We can fix it. But we'll provide all the table. You'll bring your robot. You'll compete a 2.5-minute practice match, followed by 3 2.5-minute formal competition matches that are scored. For the scored competition matches, right, you'll start the robot, and everything on the field is hands off. So you start the robot over here in the starting area. When you press go, the robot goes and completes its missions. It comes back. You do the next missions. You can do one mission at a time. You could attempt 15 missions at once, or you could have something in the middle. Maybe you have one program that runs 3 missions. It returns to home. You change it, and now it does 3 or 4 other missions, and then finishes those missions. It can end on the field. Just know that during the match, and this is one of the most difficult things a lot of rookie teams experience, is that they'll start a mission from the starting area. The robot will go off and do its thing. If it messes up, they'll grab the robot and bring it back. And that's okay, right? They'll lose a precision token, so their points will be deducted from their score, but they can't change anything that happened on the field. So that 2.5 minutes has to be a 2.5 minutes of what happens on the field, stays on the field, with very few exceptions. And one of those exceptions is they can grab the robot and bring it back to their, their pit area, not the pit area, but their home area on the table at any time, with the penalty of losing a precision token. So their points will be deducted from their score. If they never touch the robot, I believe it's 60 points. It's been 60 points in years past. I think it still is 60 points. Again, I don't really know the point totals. I don't care about the point totals. All I care about is making sure that everyone who comes to compete in First LEGO League has a fair and fun experience with their robot. So I'll first show you. This is what the video would look like. I'm not going to play it. I have no idea what the audio would be if I try that, but you'll find the video on YouTube. There's a whole bunch of resources as well that First has. If you have never seen a First LEGO League mission or challenge game occur, I'm sure that when you're on this website or on this YouTube video, there will be links to other teams showing off their 2.5-minute matches. So if you're a rookie team and you have no idea what you've gotten yourself into, watch a few of those videos. I can't guarantee that they're any good. And I can't guarantee the team posting the video has followed all the rules correctly, but it is a good step to get your feet wet to see exactly what this robot game would be about. So again, this video produced by First, great resource to understand the specifics and the scoring for each individual mission. I also want to show you that there are, in the updates, they post it by date. So we've had update 11 was posted on October 21st. And this update talks about the setup for the sorting center. So sorting center has a couple different starting configurations, and it explains that for those of you that are competing at any event, whether it's at home, you're doing a remote event, or in person for the hybrid robot game event where the robot game is in person and the judging all occurs online, the setup, it explains the exact configuration that you should follow for each of your 3 submitted matches. So the practice match sort of is you learning how to work with the referees. But when then you switch over to the 3 formal competition matches that are scored, right, you must follow this update, which says that each of the team's matches must include a different M10, so M10 means mission 10, field setup configuration. There's a total of 6 configurations you can choose from. You must use a different one for each scored competition match. So that's sort of what update 11 is telling you. It always will tell you what the update number is, followed by what mission or what part of the competition it goes to. There may be some updates periodically for judging. Right, there's an update about the clarification for the cargo plane. So this explains that the cargo plane door, which is in the northwest corner, may over time develop fatigue. So if this starts to drop down on its own, right, the team can't be penalized for the mission being fatigued. We don't use ours for practice, so it's unlikely that our mission models will become fatigued very quickly. But when you're at home and you're competing on your field, it is possible that when you move this hatch up and down multiple times, it will start to fatigue and it will start to lose some of that friction that holds it in place. So we always will follow Rule 25, benefit of the doubt. If it's not clear when the door was lowered or how the door was lowered, all the scoring occurs at the end of the match. So this update is telling the referees that If this drops during the match and there's no clear way to know if it was done by the robot or by gravity, right, we'll always rule in benefit of the doubt because we only score at the end of the match. You'll complete the entire table, whatever you're attempting, as many missions as you try to complete as a team. This will get scored at the end of that 2.5-minute timer. So when 2.5 minutes goes up, the buzzer will sound. You'll then be scored by the referee. They'll go through the scoring sheet, mark off every single mission that counts or does not count, and we'll go through the entire set of the scores with the team. You won't know what your numeric score is, but you will know what missions you did successfully and unsuccessfully, or the ones you didn't even attempt. You'll go through all that with your referee, and then the scorekeepers for an in-person event will post your scores onto a software on the computer, and hopefully we'll have a tournament ranking showing what place you're in and what your numeric score is somewhere at the qualifying site. But you'll do this, the 2.5-minute timer. So again, all the scoring occurs at the end of the 2.5-minute timer, which is what update 9 is letting the teams and the referees know about. So this is just a general sense of what you'll find in the updates. I encourage you to read through this document. There is a lot of really important information that most teams miss. So please, please, please take your time to go through this with the team. Make sure the team, if they're attempting a mission, they look in the updates to see if that mission is posted anywhere. That way, when they get to the competition, they aren't blindsided by a slight alteration or slight interpretation clarification of the rules. So make sure that you have all of these just understood. That way, you won't be blindsided when you get to a qualifying site or a competition. So the next big document that I want to share with you, I want to go through, this is the rule book. I'm not going to alter this whatsoever. I'm not going to interpret anything. I want to go through the rules explicitly as is stated in the rule book. It'll be a lot easier when we get to the missions, but I do want to give you a general sense of what each rule is. These rules are super specific to the competition. So the first rule, rule number 1, we got our AV guy here making some slight alterations to make this more visible, so bear with us. We good? Good. So rule number 1 about equipment. This rule specifically says what you can and cannot use with your robot. For example, you must keep all Lego elements in factory condition, except you can cut Lego string to whatever length you need. You can put identification marks in hidden areas for things that you might need to change periodically, right? You cannot use things like factory-made wind-up or pullback motors and so on and so forth. So this document will show you exactly what you are allowed to or not allowed to use as part of your robot. So this is here for your information. It also has some pictures showing what the different controllers and motors and sensors look like. So whether you're using the Spike Prime system or the Mindstorm EV3 system, those two different systems are all there, and that's what the parts will look like. You can use any 4 motors, right? So you can have 4 medium or large motors or small motors, whatever they have available, but you can only use 4. You cannot bring more than 4 to a field. That's not to say you can't have an extra in your pit area in case one motor fails for some reason. You can swap it out. But when you come to your table, you can only have 4 motors. So 1 controller, 4 motors per match, and you can use a sensor in any configuration, right? Gyro sensors are allowed in any mix at any number, right? Only touch or force, color, distance, ultrasonic, and gyro sensors are allowed. Any other sensors not listed here are not allowed per the first LEGO League Challenge rules. So this is a change from previous years. Software and control, you can use any software that allows you to program the Lego robot to complete an autonomous task. So it has to do everything on its own. Program has to be preloaded onto the robot. You cannot control it remotely. So Bluetooth is not allowed, and any other wireless communication to the robot is not allowed. But you are allowed to use any software to program the robot. And this is a change in previous years to help people who have difficulties such as visual impairments that can't see but can use other software to help them code if they can't read what's on the computer screen. So there are other softwares available. You also can use the stock Lego software perfectly fine. I imagine that's what most teams will use unless there's some reason to look elsewhere. So you can use any software that can autonomously program the robot. The robot has a definition of what is included. So the robot is made up of anything that is attached to the robot. So if you have a removable forklift in this example one, that's part of the robot until you take it off. So while it's sitting on the competition field, not attached to the robot, it's classified as equipment. When you add it to the robot and it's attached, it's part of the robot. When you pull it off, it's now equipment again. So that's a little bit of a clarification there. And if you're carrying something loosely, if you have a weight or you have some other item that you have on the robot that is not attached but it's carrying, that's classified as cargo. So it kind of gives a little bit of clarification in that rule. We also have the definition of what is a mission model. So the mission models are what are on the table. You don't bring those to the competition. The precision tokens, these are the tokens that the referees will use. So these tokens are on the field. They're the little red discs that come with the kit of parts. These are used by the referees every time you get a touch penalty, or I think it's interference. The referee will pull one of those off, and you're scored based on however many are remaining on the field. And the cool thing about this document, if you get it on the internet from First Inspires, these rules, you can click on it and it'll take you to the page that is on. So it's a really, really nice document they put together, formatted very nicely. So you can use these links to click and jump to those rules. I won't do that, so we can stay going through everything quickly, but those are available if you need to quickly reference something. Should be pretty simple to do that. Missions, anything you complete on the table, all the different challenges that can earn you points, those are called missions. You can do as many as you want in any order that you want. Just because it's called mission 1 doesn't mean you have to do it first. You can start with mission 9 and then do mission 6 and then do mission 12. Any order is perfectly fine. It is up to the team to strategize what is going to be most efficient and effective for them. The match, again, I explained this is a 2.5-minute match. You launch the robot, it returns, and it repeats launching and returning and launching and returning as many times as possible during 2.5 minutes for as many missions as the team wants to attempt. That's what a match will look like. Technicians are when you're at the table for your competition, 2 technicians at a time can be at the table. Now in Maryland, we don't require it to be a fluid transition, right? We know that as one student runs up to take control of the robot, the other might not be ready to jump off the table yet. And I understand that happens. So you won't be penalized if there's more than 2 at the table at a time. But just be aware that only 2 students are allowed at the table while they're handling the robot and while they're using setting up programs and having it run. So it's 2 at the table at a time, but transitions can be a little more fluid and not quite as precise. We understand that. And then new this year, because of the COVID protocols in place that are different at many of the different sites, they may have different guidelines for where the team and coaches should be standing. So make sure you check with the officials to know exactly where you will be going. And there should be a coaches meeting before every qualifier. Most will be webinars, some will be morning of. But make sure you know what the rules are for where you should be standing, just to comply so we don't have any issues in that regard. There is, similar to the last few years, we have the equipment inspection. On the unfinished or the uncovered side of the table, you have your 2 inspection areas. You have the small inspection area and the large inspection area. They're shown here by these boxes. You get points if you can have all your equipment, which you can hold there. The team can hug the equipment in that inspection area to earn those points. And when they let go, it all flies everywhere. Well, hopefully it's fly, but it all falls over everywhere. That's totally okay. As long as it fits within this area, which is marked by a red dot or a red arrow on the mat and extends all the way over to the edge. It does have a 12-inch high ceiling. So if you're holding things up very, very tall, right, that's outside of the inspection area. But it must fit in either the small inspection or the large inspection area. Anything extra that cannot fit in the large inspection area, and it has to all be in one or the other. So if you don't fit in the small inspection area, try the large inspection area. And if you don't fit in the large inspection area, some stuff will have to be disassembled and taken back to your team's pit area because you can only have that amount of equipment with you at the match. Everything you bring has to fit in one of those two areas. There's also this, and this is also in the updates to explain what is completely in versus completely on versus completely supported by. There's a bunch of different definitions for things, but completely in is all the way in, not just what's touching the mat. So for example, if this is your robot, the wheels are in completely in both situations, but on the right, there's a claw that extends out, and that's beyond that dark black borderline. So that is not completely in. Completely in is completely within or over the border. The border is included in the area. So make sure you understand there are some missions that will require things to be completely in, partially in, and understand the difference between those two. Field checks, this is just letting you know that you can calibrate your sensors. So there are the black lines and the white borders around them that you can use for line following. You can calibrate the robot anywhere. Lighting can sometimes be an issue depending on the space. So it is useful to calibrate the sensors. So if you need to, you may do so between the inspection and the start of the match. Just make sure the referee knows that you're calibrating your sensors so that they can hold off the match until you're ready to go. That being said, don't take 3 to 4 minutes to calibrate a sensor. Make sure you do things timely, and while one student's calibrating the sensors, the others are setting up the first launch and making sure everything is ready to go quickly. It is in everyone's interest to finish the competition as quickly as possible, because if you compete first in the robot game, you might have to travel home and then do a virtual judging session. So if things fall behind, that pushes the whole schedule back for the judges, who it can throw everything out the window. So we need to make sure that we keep everything on time. So make sure that any checks you do, you try to practice those ahead of time and get a sense of how long those things will take. So home is the space of the field that is the teams, right? They can have this imaginary space that is called home. There is a ton of information for what home is. So there's no ceiling to home. The robot returns to home. Home is where they can handle things. So the launch area and home are all included as home. So home is off of the mat on the bare table or the launch area. So when the robot comes back from a challenge or from a mission, it can return anywhere to home. It can return to the northwest corner of the field completely off of the table. It can return to the southwest corner, or it can return to that quarter circle launch area, which I'll get to in a second. However, when you send the robot out, everything that you're using for that launch must fit inside of the launch area. That is a very important clarification that you should be aware of, is that you have home versus launch. Launch is included in home, but home is not included in launch. And I believe there's a diagram down here. So you see the difference. So home includes the 2 inspection areas and the quarter circle, which you can find on the table. So the quarter circle launch area and the uncovered or unfinished portion of the table. And the quarter circle launch area is just the launch area. So you launch from the launch area, which is that quarter circle. You then return anywhere else. Table in view. You. Bear with us again. With primitive technology here.
That's better.
Okay.
Just don't point to anything over here.
I won't point to anything over there. Thank you. Okay, so launch area, home. The unfinished part is part of home, and the launch area is part of home. But the launch area is its own unique part of the field. Robot starts here. It can return to here or this uncovered area. So that's a very important thing to understand. This was what was done last year. So the returning teams, it should be the exact same procedure as last year for launching and returning. So launching, when the match starts, you'll have a 3-2-1 go or a 3-2-1 Lego. You'll press go on the robot, it'll go out and complete its missions. That is a launch. When the robot comes back, that is a return. So you launch the robot autonomously, it completes as much as it wants on the field, and then it can come back to home. You can then relaunch the robot as many times as you want, but the first launch has to happen on the 3, 2, 1 go, or 3, 2, 1 Lego. That's when they press go on the robot. It can be a press go on the controller itself. There could be a sensor they can activate. If that's how the team programs it, they can activate a sensor to start the robot. They can have it running ahead of time to make things a little faster, but it's not significant. But you can start it by using a sensor or by using the start button on the controller itself. If at any point in time you touch the robot after it's launched, it's called an interruption. If the robot is on the field, on the competition field, they then have to bring the robot and anything it had with it when it started its launch back to home for a relaunch. Whenever they do that, they lose a precision token. They don't have to use, right? They don't have to necessarily change anything that was already done by the robot. That all stays where it was. But one thing you cannot use interruptions for is perfect timing. If you're trying to push something just far enough, they can't go grab the robot and bring it back to base as soon as it's done, or bring it back to home as soon as it's completed that. They must leave it on the table to finish what it was doing, or stop it when something goes awry. That's sort of how interruption is meant to be managed.
What happens to the cargo? It's still in contact.
What happens to the cargo if it was still in contact with the robot? That is a great question. I'm going to scroll down to the interruption procedure. So this is more clear, I think, than it has been any time before. So if you interrupt the robot, you must stop it and carry it to home if it is not already in home. If it was completely in home, you lose a precision token. If it was not, if it was completely in home, no problem. If it was not, you lose a precision token. There is a slight exception. If you mislaunch the robot and it's just barely left that area, we'll give you benefit of the doubt and let you bring it back to relaunch without losing a precision token. If the robot is stuck outside of home, right, and you do not intend to launch the robot again, you can shut it down and leave it in place for the duration of the match without losing a precision token. So if you're stuck driving the robot into the wall and it's not going to stop, the team can stop the robot and let it just sit there idle until the match is over without losing a precision token. Right, I'll go over exactly what happens if you have cargo as well. So cargo is something that you purposefully or strategically are using with the robot, and it's considered cargo as long as the robot is controlling it. And controlling can be captured, kept, moved, released. All of those actions count as controlling. However, when you stop controlling that object, it's no longer considered cargo. So cargo is being transported somehow or being manipulated somehow by the robot. It is not part of, it would be equipment if it's the team's cargo. It would be a field mission model if it was on the table. But while the robot is using it in some way, it is considered cargo. And when the robot releases it or stops using it, it is no longer considered cargo. That doesn't count for the things that are fixed to the table. Those are mission models, even when the robot's touching it. But if it's a loose part the robot's carrying, it's considered cargo. Here's what to do during interruption. If the robot had the cargo when you launched the robot, you can bring it back. So if the robot has cargo on it that was also on it at the start of that launch, it can come back and be relaunched. If the robot, let's say, picks up the plane during their match and they have to interrupt the robot and bring it back home, the referee will take this out of play. It's no longer scoreable. So anything that the team had with them or on the robot at the start of that launch can come back. Anything that they grab along the way has to be taken by the referee, will be taken out of play, cannot be used. If they drop their cargo, let's say they have one of these mission models on the robot, they drive away, it drops it off somewhere on the field, and the robot goes farther and needs to be interrupted. Because it's no longer cargo, it's no longer on the robot or being moved or transported by the robot. It's now a mission model on the field. It's no longer cargo. When they interrupt the robot, that stays where it got dropped at, where it was dropped. So it must stay on the field if the robot drops it on the field. You can't grab the robot and the cargo and bring the mission model back as cargo unless it is still on the robot. So that's how cargo works when you're interrupting the robot. Stranded cargo. Stranded cargo is just, like I said, if you strand cargo, if you abandon something and it lays on the field, if it is completely outside of home, it stays where it is. If it is completely in home, you keep it, right? It's back in home and it's yours to use. But if it's partly on home, if it's straddling that line or partly in the launch area, it comes back with you to home, but you will lose a precision token. So this is another way that you could potentially lose a precision token. This is the least common way that I've seen. Most of the time, cargo doesn't get stranded that closely to home, but it could happen. And if that happens, just know that that's when you would lose a precision token. Interference. So for those of you that are competing virtually, there's a few of you that have asked to complete 100% virtually. This would not be an issue. However, if you're at a competition and there are two teams back to back, if anything you do that affects the other team, so if you bump the table and give it a nudge and everything on the other side falls over, right? Points failed or lost due to interference score automatically. So it doesn't affect your team negatively, except for in the rankings, because the team opposite you will now earn more points than they probably would have before, right? They automatically get the points for whatever they had attempted that was interfered with. So if something happens to the other team that they can't complete a mission or their scoring condition changes because of interference on this team's part, the other team gets the score. Field damage, right? Hopefully the robot's not going to do any field damage. Typically, if the robot knocks something, right, everything is attached with a 3M dual lock, similar to Velcro. If you detach that, right, the referee's going to try and put it back on quickly. But if anything happens and a mission model breaks or something else occurs, if the mission is made easier or possible, right, it just won't score. So if your team somehow dismantles something and now the mission is significantly easier and then they complete the mission, no score. We will try to make some minor fixes as you go. Hopefully your robot's not going to cause havoc like a bull in a china shop, but you know that happens, and we'll try to keep things as fair and fun as possible. So just for field damage, it's usually a split-second decision by the referee, but we'll always try to help you get the fields reset as quickly as possible in case you were going to attempt something. If something gets shattered, we just take it out of play, right? It's not usable. If you run the chicken over and it goes flat on the table, right, we'll just not even worry about that. It's just no longer something you can score because it's been destroyed. So those are just some things to look at here for that. I went over scoring. It occurs at the end of the match. The referee will go over the score sheet with you at the end of the match. There is direct wording versus interpretation. So if a word is not defined, you can use the meaning that you know. If the word is defined, so if it defines what cargo is or defines what interruption is, right? Those are words that the rules have explicitly defined. If a word isn't defined, just use what you know it has. And this is sort of where you'll find the remaining information and what hierarchy you should use, right? The most important document is the updates. So that's the highest authority. So that is first, then the missions, then the competition rules, then the field setup, and after that, right, I would probably be the one to tell you what the interpretation is understood to be, and if it's controversial enough, I'll get the head referee for First Lego League World to correct me or to get an official answer. And usually when it goes that high up the chain of command, it ends up in the updates. So if we have any questions, you can always contact mdfllheadref@gmail.com. That's the email account that we use to answer all robot game related questions. But make sure you understand it goes updates, missions, competition, rules, and the field setup. That's the hierarchy. Right? If you get an email from me, technically it has no authority, but I train all the referees in Maryland. So if I tell you something and they call me and say, hey, this is what the team told me, I'll say, this is what I told them, this is what you should do. So I have authority in Maryland, but not in first overall. So if I tell you something here, it could be totally different in Virginia or Pennsylvania. So just make sure that you follow the rules as closely as possible, because what I tell you today might be changed in the updates tomorrow. So just make sure you understand that hierarchy of information. And then benefit of the doubt, this is just for referees to understand when something goes wrong, what do you do? What's the outcome? What do we try to figure out with the team? We always will give teams the benefit of the doubt. If we're uncertain, we will always talk to the team and figure out, hey, did you attempt this mission? Because it looks like it was done. I don't remember watching it, but did you guys, can you show me the program you used to try to use the plane? And then we would then look at the team. They'd show us that mission. And even if they fail showing us after the fact, most of the time I'll say, I can see that you did attempt it now. It is in the scoring position, so I'll count it. So that's one of the ways benefit of the doubt could be used. Once the scoring is done, the score sheet gets signed by the team. Once the team signs it, it's official. There's no changing it. The only changes that could ever occur is if the referee for some reason went rogue and didn't do anything, just did nothing. If the team looks at the score sheet and signs it, right, every mission they've attempted should be marked as either scored, not scored, 0 through whatever number. But if there's a mission they didn't attempt, it needs to be marked no or 0, whatever the non-scoring condition is. So that's sort of what they have to do with their score sheet. But once it's signed, once that score sheet is signed by two technicians on the team, the referee takes it over to the scorekeepers, and it is official. It cannot be changed. So this is probably, as a coach, the one thing that you should work on with your team ahead of the competition. Run through a 2.5-minute match, score them, and make sure they know. I never let coaches in my scoring meetings. Coaches have to stand back. I always score with the team. They're the ones who did the missions. They're the ones who built and programmed the robot. They should be the ones to know whether something is scored or not. So make sure for the missions your team is attempting, they know what to see on the score sheet. Right? It's the same as the score online. Right? They should know exactly what they have on their score sheet. They might even know what their score numerically is, but they should know whether something they did scores or does not score. And once they sign it, that is done. So as a coach, practice 2.5-minute competition matches. Once you've done that, then go through the score with them, and that should be the way you practice in the last couple meetings leading up to your competition. Right? Make sure the team understands exactly what to do. Otherwise, there can be situations where the referee made a mistake, the team didn't catch it, and at that point, our hands are tied. It's official. We can't change it. There's no video review in robotics. Right? We like the teams to be responsible for what they've done on the table. So make sure that they know that is their responsibility, and they're able to have those conversations with the referees. They're always open to have conversations. The referees are not there to tear the team down. We're there to build them up, make them have fun, or let them have fun, and make everything fair for them. So make sure that they know they should be comfortable talking to an adult or an older student. Sometimes other first team members can be referees. So make sure they're comfortable talking to someone who's a little bit older than them and practice this kind of, not negotiation, but practice this conversation where they go through the score sheet with somebody. And it could be a parent. It could be someone, it could be a different coach they don't normally see. You could do a scrimmage with another team and have the other coach do the scoring. That would be an effective way to complete that. So that's everything for this year. In terms of the rules for what you should expect and do at the competition. I'm not going to go over every mission. I'm going to save that for the video and the updates. I want you to kind of get that information in a more concise way than me going through every single mission for 10 minutes. I don't want to waste any of your time Saturday morning, but I do want to show you what to look for in this rule book. So if I go way back up to the top, right here is the rule book, and in the rule book, it has a lot of information. So it shows you the overall field setup, where every mission is. So when you're going and trying to strategize, maybe you can start in launch area and say, well, if I just follow this black line, right, I can hit mission 13, 14, 1, and 8. There's 4 missions that my team might bundle together in one program, and we'll do all 4 of those during one run. So you can look at this document with the team and sort of strategize, figure out exactly what they want to do. This is a great place to start. It has a printout of the field looking down on it from above with every mission where it is. So this is a great starting point to see and to strategize for your competition. There's also a 3-dimensional view showing you what that field looks like from the corner the referee will stand in. The referee's corner is always the southeast corner. That's where the position tokens will be placed, and the referee will watch the team from there. The referee will move if the team needs to get around him or her for any reason, but that's generally the view the referee will look at. So as a coach, that's a great place for you to stand while you're working with the team to figure out or to practice your 2.5-minute matches. There's also all of these different explanations, what bag number they came in for the competition sets that you get all of the field, you get the mat, you get the Lego mission models, right? All of these, it shows you what bag they're in, what they're called, what missions they refer to, and what the name of the mission is. So this is super handy, in my opinion, to quickly look and see, oh, I know what these things go to, I know what they are, and I know how to talk to my team or have the team talk to each other about what everything is. So this mission model building instructions, you can find it all online. There's a QR code at the top of this document. Then you have field setup. This is the most important part of in terms of the field setup. The most important part is mat placement. If you notice this, there's this width and this height. So this width is called X, the height is Y. That is this open area. This open area is home. You want home to be as big as possible for your team. So what you do is you take the mat and you push it as far southeast as possible. It should be flush with the south wall, flush with the east wall. There will likely be a gap in the north wall just because the mat is made a little bit smaller to fit slight variation in table sizes. And there'll be a large gap in the west wall, right? And that's where you have your 2 inspection areas in the beginning, which then become home. So make sure you follow this guide. It's very detailed. It shows you exactly where everything gets placed. It shows you how to attach documents using the 3M dual lock that comes with the kit. It shows you what goes in home. It shows you where mission 2, the hinge container, gets placed. It's not perfect. It doesn't show you on the table where it goes. But if you refer to that earlier page that has a top-down view, it should be very simple to lay out the table and set everything up correctly. This is one of the many things that occurs at a competition. Typically, is a team will come and will say, this table is set up incorrectly, and I'll go through this document and say, actually, our table is set up correctly. How do you set up your table at home? And we find some discrepancies. So make sure you look at this document and you set things up exactly as it says, because this is how every table you'll see will be set up. Just make sure you're following this to the T. That way everything can be correct. So once we get through all of the setup, then we'll start to get into the missions. And this is where I'm going to stop. I'm not going to go into every single mission individually. That would take a long time, but I do want to keep this quick. So I'm going to go over, this is what it will look like in every single mission. So for mission 1 through 16 or 17, I forget what the last number is, you'll have this layout. In this big blue box, you have a picture of the model, where it is on the field, and information about the mission. I'll show you one mission just as an example to kind of clarify what this is. When you see things, regular black text under the mission description lists the main requirements. So the regular black text tells you what the requirements of the mission are, and the points will be in red. If the referee sees these things performed or completed, you earn those points. So whatever is written in black is the requirements, these are the things the referee is looking for. Any blue italic text is just important extra information. So leniencies, helpful facts, any additional requirements, those are there. Sometimes you'll see pictures to show each scoring condition. So you'll usually have, if you have more than one condition, you'll see examples. So it'll show you examples of each of the possible scoring conditions. So I'll show you one mission and go over all that information for you. And in case you weren't aware, north is always the wall facing away, the opposite long wall from where the launch area is. South is the long wall adjacent to the launch area. And then obviously east is to the right of the launch area, and west is left side adjacent to the launch area. So that's the direction. The compass is also usually located somewhere on the field. So just so you know that, that's how north, east, south, and west are. So I'll go to mission 2, unused capacity. So here's what is included in that mission, all the parts. Here's where it is on the field. And it tells you if the hinge container is completely closed, if it's partly full of contents, you get 20 points. If it's completely full of contents, you get 30 points. So you have some of these container contents that start off in the home area. They're the team can use them with their hands, put them on the robot, and have to complete different challenges. So let's say the robot takes this orange bar, it comes over here, and the robot opens up the hinge container. So with this hinge container open, they can place the orange bar in and close it. And if this is completed, it doesn't matter where it is anymore. Notice it doesn't say it has to stay here. The robot can pick this up. The robot can add this orange container to it, and it can drive it out wherever it wants to, right? If the hinge container is completely closed and is partly full of contents, so there's only one content in here, right? It's not completely full. There's plenty of room to grow. Then it's partly full. Partly full means 1 to 5 pieces are fit completely inside the closed hinge container. Completely full requires all 6 components to be fit inside of the hinge container. So you have 6 components on the field with you. Those 6 must fit completely inside the hinge container, and that counts as scored. If it's all 6, you get 30. If it's 1 through 5 of them, you get 20. Now, this is one of those missions where it doesn't say specifically that the robot has to do it. So again, I'm not trying to strategize for anybody, but if the robot brings it back to home, it is allowable for the team by hand to do some of the missions. So if it doesn't explicitly say it has to be done by the robot, or it can never enter into home, right? Then that means the team can interact with these things. So you have the robot is the one delivering the package, but there's a person packing everything into the box, which is essentially what can happen here. So the team can pack everything into the hinge container, and it doesn't matter where it ends up. It only matters that it starts here and that you complete one of these 2 requirements, either 1 through 5 completed content pieces that's partly full, or 6 pieces that is completely full. So that is just one example of what you might see. If it's not completely closed because there's something blocking it, as shown in this picture, that won't count as partly full or completely full because it's not completely closed. So there are a lot of requirements in these missions that you need to read into and understand. There also are some updates that have some more clarifications. I will show you one more update just to show you another example of this. This is the last one. So there's the door, the package. So the home delivery clarification. The requirement is that the package is completely on the doorstep. So here, first mission, you get 20 points if it's on the doorstep. So it's not attached, it's on an anchor, it's not completely supported by, it's also touching the mat, but it is on the doorstep. 20 points for that. In this instance, it is completely supported by the doorstep, but is not completely on the doorstep. So this is also only 20 points. But then if the mission model, the package, which starts in home, is completely on the doorstep, that's 30 points. So there are clarifications as well that are set up just like they are in the rule book in the updates. So please make sure that you look into all of the updates, all of the rules. Watch the mission video to get points, and hopefully you'll have a successful season completing or competing in First Lego League Maryland with your First Lego League Challenge team. I will go through some of the questions. Are there any questions in YouTube on the chat? There are none. Perfect. Okay. So if you have questions, email mdfllheadref@gmail.com. I will happily clarify anything there for you. Otherwise, best of luck this season and have a great first competition this winter. Sick.